Welcome to Dave and Dharm Demystify, a FinTech Futures podcast, helping make sense of the world of FinTech and digital finance. Please sit back and listen as the two Ds take a subject and discuss it to make it clearer and easier to understand.
Demystify.
Welcome everybody to the Dave and Dharm Demystify show, and this week it's myself and I have a very esteemed guest, Zahra Timsah from i-GENTIC AI. Zahra, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. You have a very prolific profile on LinkedIn, so would you mind just introducing yourself to the audience and give us a bit about your background and then tell us a bit more about i-GENTIC.ai?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Zahra Timsah. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called i-GENTIC AI. So prior to Agentic AI, I was an executive at IQVIA and before that at MassMutual. The focus of my work was mainly to develop and manage both products and services with focus on compliance, regulations of data, AI, privacy, and cybersecurity. I worked with the World Economic Forum and I was also an advisor to the FDA and US Senate on the topic, so heavily involved in regulated industries. I spent few years as well as a professor in the UK, and my passion has always been insurance, healthcare, and so on, to the extent that I founded two companies in the past. One was a pharma company that went IPO, and another one was an AI consulting company that got acquired. So my education is heavy on the healthcare industry, bachelor's, master's, and PhD in healthcare, but also an MBA with focus on management and finance. So this is me in a nutshell. As for my company, the technology itself is patent pending and proprietary. We've been developing this technology for some time now, me and my founders as well. So, with this technology, what we created is basically digital chief compliance officers. And these officers are basically agentic AI powered. They can achieve autonomous and instant governance and compliance across AI, data, privacy, and cybersecurity. So basically, you don't have to firefight. Everything is going to be achieved proactive. So you will be up to date, you will be compliant, you will be regulated 24/7 through these agents.
Cool. I mean, given your background as a serial entrepreneur and also your background, I guess, in AI, what kind of drove you really to go on to a third startup? Because quite easily you could have walked into most companies given your background.
Yeah. So basically, once you work with big companies, it is very difficult for you to see actionable results right away. For me, I thought that, hey, this is something that is urgent. The many countries, not just the UA, are developing AI. Innovation is being developed so fast, but regulation is lacking. And this sense of urgency, I had two choices: either go to a big company as before and push for that, which is going to take time, or just start a company and work on something I'm really passionate about, which is, of course, regulations and compliance in AI.
You're a true serial entrepreneur, something I kind of follow too. So that's good. So with agentic AI, I guess with the regulations, is it an easier area? Because when I look at what's going on with, I guess, with agentic, there hasn't been like a huge number of companies necessarily. So I think some people are still getting to grips with producing something that's truly agentic. You are one of the few that have got a solution to market already. But when I've looked in the market, there's probably been two or three that are focused on kind of governance and regulations. Is there a reason for that? Is that something, is it an easier place to start or not? What do you think is the driver behind that?
So, the majority of companies you see out there that claim they are agentic, and this is based on me using them and testing them and so on, they are wrappers around current LLMs. So, it's a fancy chatbot that you can interact with. For you to develop a true agentic AI for governance and compliance, you need to make sure these are fine tuned, systems, meaning you need to have a background in the industry. So our agents are trained after 15 to 17 years of our own experience. So basically, when you use iGentic, it's like using a version of me or one of my co-founders. So all of our knowledge is baked into the agents. This is our differentiating factor, and it's very difficult to replicate in the market.
And do you use a specific underlying foundation model, or are you creating something of your own?
It's a hybrid of both. So for ease for the user, it's bring your own model, but we are in the process of also creating our own so that we have everything under one umbrella.
Fantastic. And in terms of operation, obviously regulations are kind of changing all of the time. And I guess these are verbose documents and notes that are put on the regulator's sites. Do the agents kind of work in a live mode? How does it actually work? Can you describe how your platform operates in production?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what you're doing with iGentic is you have two different versions, right? So you have the developer version of iGentic and you have the SaaS version of iGentic, software as a service. Now, the developer version of iGentic, we provided as a group of APIs. So it's like Lego. Every API has a different functionality. So one of them is going to parse through regulations, through SOPs. Another one is going to act. A third one is based on like a library of tools that the agents can use. And then someone who's technically savvy at a company, like an engineer, can take what they need out of this dev version and use it, integrate it into their system, and have iGentic run in the background and achieve compliance by design. Now, if you want something that is with the different like features and functionalities, comprehensive plug and play, you use our SaaS version. The SaaS version is interesting. You can have a conversation, so it's conversational with this chief digital or digital chief compliance officer. We call it GD. And then based on your interaction with this compliance officer, the first thing you do is, of course, point it to what is it that you want to govern? Is it a process? Is it a platform? You point it to the repository of where you keep those projects. And what I mean by project, it can be an analytics platform that's powered by AI, it can be a data pipeline, and then iGentic will connect to your systems. And these systems can be something that you developed in house. It can be as simple as a MongoDB, AWS, your tech stack, basically. And then basically, these agents will start ingesting external regulations and also internal SOPs, like HIPAA, like GDPR. Why SOPs? Because every company has its own interpretation of these regulations. And you want to make sure that Agentic is aware of the entire company history to provide you context aware, fit for purpose output. And then the agents can basically go through your system, go through your projects, and flag whatever is unregulated, whatever requires your attention, whatever is high risk, like the EU AI Act defines AI systems as high, medium, low risk. You can define those or identify those that are high risk. And the last step is obviously the agents providing recommendations on how to be compliant, or it can act autonomously on your behalf if you are comfortable with that.
Wow. So is the platform very specific to AI, or can it be applied, let's say, to banking regulations if I was a bank in the US, let's say?
Absolutely. So right now, for example, if you look at the banking system, right? Traditional compliance, traditional GRC or tooling that's used in banking system is very reactive, so to speak. They're governed by, let's say, periodic audits, human reporting, and rule-based systems. So for us, by contrast, it's an autonomous system, it's adaptive and it's continuous. Now, because we use intelligent agents that are trained on regulatory frameworks like AML D6, FATF, GDPR, anything like KYC, AML regulations. So, what you can do through iGentic is for the banking system specifically, you can monitor those systems, you can monitor transactions, let's say in real time, you can detect non-compliance or anomalies instantly, you can trigger remediation autonomously, or you can just escalate the issues to humans for a human in the loop final decision. And these agents are always learning. So you have this feedback loop, right? So the agents can provide you with better and better results as you continuously interact with it. So the concept here is you're going from audit after into let's govern as it happens.
Cool. So I guess that's a highly flexible kind of approach to all of this stuff. One of the concerns I have with agentic platforms is that, like with most kind of technology shifts, we start with vendors because it's something new. You have to almost invent a stack of your own. But over time, you start to realize that actually we might need to be more flexible so that people can reduce any duplication in their implementations of agentic solutions. So if you were providing the compliance and somebody else was doing, let's say, credit risk in banking and somebody else was doing fraud and AML in banking, then what we don't want is the orchestration of those agents running across three different technologies. Can you tell us a bit about like what you're doing to kind of remain agnostic to what could be a future generic architecture for agentic platforms?
Yeah, so Agentic is basically created as a to augment, not replace tools,
Okay.
right? So it is also intended for it to have the ability to integrate and connect through APIs. So that's something that we already have. Now, if there is no API that is available out of the box, you can have a conversation with Genie, and Genie, this agent, the orchestrator, can basically help you create connections and integrations, either guide you or to some extent, it's not magic, of course, do it on your behalf. So, this is something that we already have this genetic augmentation. So it is cross domain, it is in a way or another template driven, right? And you can apply it really to any like vertical, whether you're talking about credit risk, AML, or cybersecurity. So this is something that we already have.
Cool. And you mentioned APIs, but do you also publish an MCP server for each of your model or for your models?
No, not for the time being.
Is that a kind of a direction that you'll be looking at in the future or?
It is a potential roadmap item, so to speak. But for the time being, to be honest with you, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible so it's usable. Agentic AI is a new industry, right? And it requires a lot of education. So people can understand how to use it and again, fit for purpose. You don't want those agentic AI to run rogue on your system and start doing things for you autonomously all the time. Trying to keep it simple, trying to keep it just relevant to the important issues that clients are comfortable delegating to AI agents.
Excellent. And with the platform as it is, you kind of cover, you've got a very extensive kind of platform at the moment. I mean, how do you see the platform growing out? What's the kind of vision for the company and the platform?
That's a good question. So, for the time being, we only focus on three sectors. We focus on healthcare, and this is very holistic, right? Like comprehensive when I say healthcare. So, life insurance falls under it. But we also focus on finance and fintech, and to an extent, some projects that deal with government entities. Now, why did we do that? Because we wanted to have a high level of fidelity and accuracy, and we wanted to be able to check whether or not the outputs of the agents are accurate when we were fine tuning it and continue to improve it, obviously. This can only be done with human in the loop, someone checking the output, someone correcting the agents, training them, baby steps. So this is why we're focusing on these sectors. Now we also want to expand to other sectors. We want to create kind of a generalized compliance operating system. And this is what we intend Agentic to grow into. And this is the first thing. The second thing is right now we are operating in the US and also in the Middle East, and it's bilingual. So we are ingesting and helping with regulations that are in English and in Arabic. But we also want to expand to other countries. We want to expand to Europe and as such, because Europe is highly regulated and we don't want to miss the opportunity. And like I said, we don't want the magic of agentic AI. We want a system that is useful, usable, and sticky.
Right. And then another question that I kind of like ask pretty much every company is that the pace of change is certainly in my 40 years of kind of technology, I've never seen the pace move so quickly. And that's not only just the pace of the innovation, but actually also adoption as well. It seems to me that a new model is pushed out, and then, by the time the next one's come out, it's already got millions of users. How are you managing to stay up with I guess, the latest capabilities of these foundation models, and also just other technologies that might come into the foray?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna get a bit philosophical
Sure.
here, right?
Good.
So we are doing so many things, and this is something I've done not just for Agentic, for other companies as well. So I tend to shift from what they call catch up to plug in. You can never, in any industry, in any sector, you can never outpace the flow of change. But what you can do is you can build systems that keep us connected to it, right? Like as simple as let's subscribe to curated signal feeds, right? Like not noise, but actual signal feeds. Use agents like our agent, for example, to digest latest regulations, latest technical releases. So, in a way or another, we're not just chasing information, we are architecting a system where, as they say, dog fooding, using our own agents to architect a system where information is finding us. And this is what we do right now. So, every wave that you see from AI governance to blockchain, even quantum computing, still sits on few timeless pillars, as I call them. You have the data, model, decision, action, and feedback. So, if you really understand that flow, like deeply understand that flow, you can adapt to any new framework as long as you layer it on top of it. Basically, any new model. And especially that we have bring your own model baked into iGentic. And one thing that I do, and also I advise others to do, is to learn in layers, like not in bursts, so to speak. So, as long as you build a core learning cadence and you kind of pair that with contextual learning, and you try to do what they call retrieval style learning, like a knowledge base, so that your lessons compound. As long as you have that way of thinking, then you can easily keep up. Also, most importantly, acceptance. Accept that velocity is the new normal. So it's not just about stability anymore, it's about adaptability. So the winners, us,
Mm.
are those that iterate fast, and this is what we're doing. We build systems that are interoperable, flexible, and just be strategically calm with all of this technical chaos. Like, think less of follow the wave and more of like, let's serve everyone that actually matters.
And are you doing anything about not having to be dependent on a single cloud provider? I'm just thinking of the recent outages with AWS and Azure. And I guess in Europe, we have these DORA regulations, which basically say that financial services companies can't be reliant on a single cloud provider, and they have to prove that they can switch between providers if necessary. And that's kind of spawned another area like multi-cloud capabilities. Are you doing anything yourself to kind of be resilient against a cloud provider going down?
Yeah, so we are really doing that. So we're designing for cloud abstraction at Agentic and not cloud loyalty. So we are thinking of these cloud providers as a utility and not an ecosystem. You can swap clouds without like having to rewrite code. This is what we are trying to achieve. Like the practical actions for us is to be able to build against like open interfaces, like OpenAI, Docker, whatever, rather than vendor specific SDKs. Another thing we're doing is we're trying to keep the state and metadata portable, right? So we are avoiding managed databases that lock us in, like AWS. We are storing the configuration and the secrets usually in agnostic platform, agnostic vaults. So these are a few of the things that we are doing. We are containerizing everything, right? Like this is the universal currency of compute. We're doing that. We are centralizing the control. We are decentralizing the compute. So these are a few things that we're doing. So yeah, absolutely. We keep up and we're on top of it.
Fantastic. And when I think about kind of agentic platforms, I kind of look more towards the future, that at the moment, it may be that, most things are kicked off by some human interaction as such. But I start to see that more and more platforms will actually, the users will be other agents, and that will demand, and certainly something like what you're designing, I can start to easily see going across different industries and being global. But in a global world across industries using agents, that's a new level of scalability. I mean, let's say for internet banking, somebody logs in and they pay a bill. There's only certain amount of times that people are going to log in and pay bills on their internet banking. Whereas if we move to an agentic world, it could be that instead of people logging in, an agent is paying bills on behalf of people. And because of near zero cost payments using things like stable coins, these agents may make micropayments, right? Now we start to see the volumes of interactions go up, and therefore calls to agentic platforms increase because it's not human driven, but it's agent driven, let's say. So the question is really about, are you planning for, or have you designed in the capability to scale for agent use as opposed to just, human use almost?
So basically, what you're saying right now with iGentic, we have humans that are interacting with the system, right, with our agents. Okay, that's good. But in the future, you're going to have a multitude of agents. So a client will be using iGentic's agent, which is good, but also they're going to be using other agents, like let's say an SDR agent or a banking agent that is specialized. How will iGentic be able to keep up with all of these kind of agents that are interacting outside of iGentic? Does iGentic have the capability to do so? And the answer is yes, absolutely, we have that. We don't have it fully developed, but we have the orchestrator, which is Genie, capable of ingesting other agents as well, external to iGentic, right? And processing a lot of like microtransactions, like the way you put them, whether it's performed by agentic's agents or external agents as well. These are things that we don't have fully developed, but these are things we are thinking about achieving, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I fully appreciate that you're one of the front runners in this space, in that there aren't too many companies that have got solutions that are truly agentic. So I wasn't expecting a solution today, but it's good to know that you're kind of thinking about it and designing it in, because I think there are vendors that are trying to apply agentic to their legacy software, and they're coming a cropper in many kind of aspects of the solution. But I fundamentally believe that the solutions of the future will have to be kind of native agentic platforms. It's not something that you can apply to an existing platform easily. Just on the topic of AI generally, though, how far have you used AI outside of the product itself? I mean, are you kind of like AI native as a company? Do you use it to write your code, your documentation? Do you use it for hiring? Do you use it for your sales and marketing? How much of the AI side of things are you, using outside of the product?
I would like to just go back to your previous question a bit, and I want to emphasize on just a few things. So, what we have right now, just to clarify for Agentic, is something that is very interested, and we call it Agent Passport Framework. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, with the concept. So, for every agent that we have, internal agents, or even ones that you can add external agents, we have a digital identity that you can define the scope, you can define the jurisdiction, and you can define the permission for. Now, one thing that's in current build is API based agent communication. So, this is being built. So, external systems can basically call all of these different governance endpoints. And we work with governance, so it's always governance endpoints. Another thing that's implemented is the tool registration. So basically, Agentic is capable of registering and orchestrating external tools as agent endpoints. We have in operation right now the policy abstraction layer. And this is something that is crucial because any regulation or any external agent doing this particular task apart from Agentic can also be utilized within our system. As you can see, the innovation that we have or plan to have is always fit for purpose. My worry about the industry in general is there is a lot of blind innovation going on. When you ask someone, why are you doing what you're doing? They don't have an answer. We're doing it because it's new, because no one did it before, it's groundbreaking, and so on. But again, what is the purpose? Is it solving a pain point? Is it providing a value add? The answer is usually no.
No, I get that. I get that. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. So, if I was a bank, so most of our listeners are kind of banks and fintechs and insurance companies. And what would you say to them about why they need your solution?
So they need the solution to make it easier for them to stay compliant. So, at the very basic level, keep up with the ever changing regulations, external regulations. The second one is to ensure that their own regulations, internal SOPs, are being followed consistently by all of their employees. Internally, you are regulated externally, but yes, you are regulated internally. The other one is being audit ready, like being audit ready all the time because these agents are running 24/7. So anytime you want to have a report, you want to submit it to a regulator, you have it in hand. You don't have to scramble, you don't have to look at the different tools or tech stacks you're using, your processes, and I don't know what. You always have consistent results, right? Because if you are delegating this compliance task to 10 employees, you're going to get different results. So, at the bare minimum, this is what these agents can achieve. Now, usually bankers would come to me and say, hey, we don't even have AI. Well, Agentic, our product, is not just for AI. Do you have data? Yes. Do you have processes? Do you use technology? Yes. Then the easiest thing for you to do is to utilize Agentic. It comes with lessons learned. It comes trained on experts like experience. They're like 17 years in the industry. Do you want to just have someone whom you have to onboard and train and do a lot of mistakes, trial and error, or just use something out of the box, plug and play, and get yourself an evergreen compliance solution?
And have you got any kind of stats or information about like how much benefit your platform has over traditional, I guess, compliance departments? Because I would imagine, I mean, look, I worked in banks and, worked as a supplier to banks. And I know the tier ones, especially in the compliance space, will have potential, like a global bank will have tens of thousands of people in compliance. I mean, will this save them manpower? Will it save them? Obviously, it will save them time, but will they be able to reduce the number of people that they have? Or is that not the main goal? Is the main goal just about real efficiency?
So I can't give you like a very solid number because it varies from one company to another. It also varies on what they have initially like to begin with. But the whole point of Agentic is not to replace humans. And this is something I really want to clarify because we do have the occasional, is Agentic gonna replace me? No, Agentic is not gonna replace you. It is intended to act as a decision support system, like making sure that the results, that the reports, that whatever compliance or regulatory action or framework within a bank is achieved with a higher level of accuracy and it's continuously up to date. So, this is the first thing. We are augmenting, we are supporting. Agentic is replacing mundane tasks. So it's saving time, it's saving employees, it's saving employers as well, a lot of valuable time. Cost reduction. Yes, absolutely. So when you have Agentic, it sits on top of tools, it augments tools. Yep, that is 100% correct. However, if you use Agentic and you think about buying future tools, you will be hesitant because Agentic is providing you exactly what you need, right? No bells, no whistles that are not going to be used. But if you want to buy additional products or external products, they're going to be expensive. They're going to be siloed as well, right? So it's also saving you money with that regards. So yeah, and one last thing I would mention is reputational damage. So if you use Agentic, you can be sure that you'll always be compliant, up to date with regulations. You don't have to like go and audit your projects retroactively. And this really helps you because if you can avoid breaches or leaking sensitive data and whatnot, then you avoid, let's say, lawsuits and like media and all of this craziness. Hence, you protect your reputation as well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this before, but I think just as we see the complexity and the range of kind of technologies increasing, I guess that brings with it like a whole range of new things in compliance as well. And I think the jobs everywhere get more complex and bigger and therefore will require the automation. It's funny because when I first started in banking, I did a project around kind of process reengineering across the bank. And one of the goals was to reduce the amount of paper that we used in the bank. And actually, what happened with increased digitization was that we bought more printers and used more paper. And that was because we increased the number of products, we increased the geography that we reached, We fine-tune the segmentation model from a marketing perspective, etc. And the bank got immensely more complicated, but it was able to do that because of the underlying efficiency of the early technologies that we used. So I can see the same thing potentially happening now, is that AI will be used to kind of help us scale the organization for the increasing complexity that not only technology brings, but globalization, etc. as well. Is that a fair point, do you think?
I think it's absolutely a fair point. So I'm not sure if you want to address this, but there are a lot of emerging trends as well right now in RegTech, specifically at banks, right? So if you look at fintech companies, you have AI and machine learnings, right? They are increasingly integrated into their compliance workflows. You have anomaly detection in transactions, you have improved KYC, AML screening, and so on. So this is where we can be heavily, or agentic can be heavily utilized. I had a couple of conversations last week with few of the major banks in the US, and I noticed that they're shifting from AI as an experiment, not automation, AI as an experiment, to AI in production. And there's a lot of academic work going on about autonomous sub-agents that are being applied to different suspicious activity reporting. And these are also being developed. This is where we need a tool or a platform like i-GENTIC. This is where it comes in. So people are thinking beyond automation. They're thinking beyond kind of cutting down on costs and so on, to ensuring that they are ready when the time comes for this massive wave of agentic AI and tech complexity. For example, there's also a trend towards sharing like risk intelligence across institutions, like federated learning, they call it, or collaborative networks. So you need compliance ecosystems that are less siloed, like cross-institution cooperation is becoming more and more common. Again, this is where agentic will be heavily utilized as well.
Cool. So we are kind of at the end of the show almost, but I'm going to ask you one kind of left field question. If we believe I guess, the optimists in AI, and the optimists say that we're going to reach AGI or super intelligence, at some point, does that actually mean that we won't need companies like i-GENTIC or any other vendors, because the platforms themselves will be able to do everything? Do you believe that we'll get to something like that?
Well, I would hope that agentic becomes the invisible layer. Like it's always there. We have compliance by design. It's baked into every piece of innovation that humans can produce. This is my hope, that we don't think of compliance as an add-on. We just think of it as a natural component of everything that we develop. But it's all about education. It's all about telling people that compliance is not going to stifle this innovation, like governance moving from after AI to inside AI, like embedded directly inside this cognitive loop, at the level of reasoning, at the level of data, and at the level of action.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Zahra. I've really enjoyed that conversation, and your insights have been extremely valuable. I've certainly learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure that the audience will have too. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Dave and Dharm Demystify. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we take another topic and demystify it.